Hello everybody, welcome back to X-Plane 11. We are currently at KPDX up in Portland, Oregon. We're going to be flying south along the western coast of the United States to KOAK, which is Oakland International Airport, situated on the opposite side of the bay of an airport we've been to many times so far, San Francisco. Situated literally like right next to each other on the other side of the bay, essentially. That's where we're going to be going. It's a major hub for FedEx, which is very fitting for the aircraft that we are in. This is a FedEx. You can't really see it too well. You can only see the tail. This is a FedEx, and if you looked at the tail, a FedEx 727. Specifically, this is the 727-200F. This is from FlyJSim. These are the same people who made the Boeing 737-200 for X-Plane, along with the much more recent Bombardier Q400 or Dash 8, whichever you want to call it. The twin turboprop aircraft, little regional. This is I think this is like their first aircraft they made, and in my opinion, it is possibly the greatest aircraft for X-Plane. It is a very true to life 727. And it mimics even some of the issues that the 727 had, which we will get into later. So this is in cargo. This is its cargo paint. I know I'm rambling. I can't speak too well. It's 2:30 in the morning. Oh, sorry. Correction. 2:58 in the morning. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and which isn't good for me. But who cares? So this 727. It's in a group. It's in a collection. They released it. It's like it's 60 USD, I think, and it's a collection of the 727-100, the 727-200 ADV, and the 727-200F. This is its default paint job. It's paint schematic, and its FedEx colors. The one downside I have is that there is no interior, so you can't see the cargo door open. There's no openable cargo door like on the Just Flight DC-10. It's kind of like the 747, the UPS 747 that we did from Anchorage to San Francisco, actually. No wingtips, as you can see. If you actually look, you can't really see it too well because of the dark, but if you see right there, the slats are actually out. I mean, a piece of the slats, I guess, is out because there's no hydraulic power, so this is just kind of free hanging. Once you get electric power, it'll go up. So the 727 was one of the first commercial airliners in the 7X7 series. Of course, by 727, only two came before it: the 707, that beautiful long-range 4-engined narrow body that Boeing built, and the 717, which I believe was a derivative of the then Douglas DC-9, which then went on to be the McDonnell Douglas MD-80 through MD-90. The MD-90 is actually the MD-80 series, the Mad Dog series, is very old, kind of. It was first born from, I think it was the DC-9 first, and then Boeing made its version of it with the 717, which then was kind of taken by McDonnell Douglas after the merger, and they took the DC-9 and they elongated it. They just made it a long boy. And then, boom, we got the MD-80. And then the 727 came after it. It was kind of meant to wedge the gap a little between like a low-range aircraft, a low-range jet aircraft, and a long range. It's kind of like a mid-range. It's that perfect gap filler. It's a beautiful tri-jet with the S-Duct. I can't remember the exact model of these engines, but they are low bypass ratio turbofans. Actually, I don't even think they're that. I think they're just turbojets. There is a difference between a turbofan and a turbojet, and I don't remember the exact differencing between the two. Turbofans are better in every way, but I think this might be a turbojet. Either way, it's a low bypass. These are very small engines. I believe these are actually the same engines found aboard the 737-200, the older classic models of the 737. So that's cool. I believe actually one of the first high bypass ratio jets was on the 747s with the JT9, the Pratt Whitney JT9D. I think that was one of the first. It's not the first, but it was one of the first. And if you're wondering why I know that, it's because I also bought another plane, and if you look up the JT9D, you'll see what plane that I'm referencing. I'll give you a bit of a hint. It's for X-Plane 11, costs 70 USD. It's a big boy. You'll probably be able to figure it out. Anyways, so I've rambled on for long enough, I think. 5 minutes. Well, yeah. So anyways, from KPDX to KOAK, so Portland to Oregon, it's about 500 nautical miles. It's not going to be that long of a flight. I don't think we've actually been to Portland before. I could be wrong, but I don't think we have. I think the last flight we had up in the Northwest was back after Sim Update 5 for Microsoft Flight Sim, where we took the A320 from Seattle to Las Vegas, I think, and that was also the flight where we had a cabin decompressurization because one of the doors didn't close. I think that's that. So, yeah. We're going to go ahead and get into the cockpit. We're going to get some electrical power established. So, when you load in, this is what you're greeted with. Very dark cockpit. I'm going to get my aviation flashlight. We're going to come over here to the flight engineer panel. You can hear the GPUs connected by this yellow light. So, we're going to close the guard on the battery. We're going to turn on the external power and put the essential power on standby. We're going to come over here and turn on the dome light. There we go. That's just a little... Also going to come over here to the overhead, and we're just going to turn on some of these lighting systems. Forward panel background, put that about half. Overhead panel bright. Control stand about half. And you go there. You can go there. You can go there and there and there. Okay. So this is what you're greeted with in this 727 cockpit. It's not as complex as you might think. This whole flight engineer panel honestly isn't that complex compared to another plane that I eventually want to look at. The Just Flight DC-10 I would say is complex from an actual standpoint of looking at it and all the systems that it has. Yes, it is complex, especially compared to the 727. However, in terms of Just Flight and in terms of actual sim complexity, it's not that complex, unfortunately. But this is pretty manageable. There is another plane, like I said, that we will be looking at that is far more advanced with its flight engineer panel, so much so that it overwhelmed me when I first saw it. Anyways, so we're going to start off by doing an indicator light test, and I'm doing an indicator light test because last time I flew, I had 2 indicator lights out. And I'll get more onto that in a minute. So just looking at all of our indicator lights, making sure they are all working. Taking a look at the overhead here. I kind of want one to be out for the sake of being able to look at, but it's not looking like we have any out, unfortunately. Doesn't look like we have any out, but yet again, I missed one last time. Alright, so we're going to put you back to brake. We're going to do an engine fire test. Alright, we're going to do a cargo fire test. We're going to do an APU fire test. There we go. We're going to test this. Test the overheat lights. And we'll test this. Test the flaps. There we go. So that is all good. We'll go ahead and turn on the electric hydraulic pumps and open up the ground to connect valve. And that way our slats, little leading edges there, they go up, they retract. It's good. We're going to come over here. We're going to turn on the navigation and the logo lights. See that beautiful FedEx livery being casted. Now, I want to see. Can I see this in the dark? Yeah, you can kind of see it. You can kind of make it out. So, FlyJSim actually took the liberty of modeling the intake for this number 2 engine, despite the fact that it's shrouded inside the aircraft thanks to the S-Duct. Oh, there is one thing that they got, and that is an air stair. If you shift F1, you can open up the air stair. It's a little odd because, like I said, there is no interior. So it's a little odd. I'm just going to close that. But it's cool that they added that. It was a very prominent feature of the 727. This model also, I don't think this has the quiet. The 727 was a very loud aircraft that Boeing actually developed a quiet kit for it. And I don't think it's simulated on this. I don't think it's an option on this. However, you can see the reverse shroud open. and maybe be able to see it actually open, because this is where the reversers on this, it closes that shroud, and the thrust gets pointed out through this way, and normally you can see it. Oh, you can kind of see it moving. There's a lot of detail in this aircraft, and I love it. You can see the little bit of the aileron movement. Not much, because we don't have we have very limited hydraulic supply, and also this is just accurate to the aircraft. The actuators in the 727 were very slow compared to modern aircraft, and that's what a lot of pilots actually noted on. That when you're flying the 727, it's definitely a lot more care goes into it, because you can't really make fast, rapid movements because its actuators are a lot slower than modern aircraft. Anyways, APU is going to go on. We're going to wait a couple seconds, and then we're going to put this into the start position. The crank comes up, and then we're going to wait till the exhaust starts rising, and then we're going to let it go. We're also going to come over here. We're going to do an overheat test. And then we're going to turn on the window heat. These will stay on for the entire duration of the flight. And look at that beautiful lighting. I love it. I love the lighting in this plane. While the APU is coming up, we're going to do a stall warning test, flight recorder test, and a CBR test. Go. And then once the APU is all up and running, we'll do a GPWS test. Well, now there's nothing really telling us when the APU is available. How we're going to figure that out is looking at the exhaust. When the exhaust temperature starts to fall, that's when we'll know that the APU is ready to go. Yep, so there it goes, and then we'll come over here and we'll close the generator circuit. So now we're on the APU power. I'm going to make sure that it's actually powering the aircraft, and we're going to turn the essential power to APU. Oh, and then the external power auto kicks off, so then we'll say goodbye to the cargo. And we'll make sure the fleets are open. We're going to turn on the cargo heat outflow and turn on the Gasper fans. We'll turn on the auto pack trip, and we'll turn on the galley power. And then we're going to open up the left pack. And from what I've seen in this aircraft, you can only have one pack on at a time with the APU, because it will very quickly see when you turn on a pack, you can see that temperature from the exhaust starts rising, and it'll level off anywhere from I'd say 450 to about 600, usually within 450 to 550 though. And if you turn on the second pack, it'll very quickly go into the red, which isn't good. So we're just going to be keeping it with the left AC pack on, because I believe that powers that heats up the cockpit, and when we're in a cargo aircraft, that's very nice. Especially since I think Portland's like 10 degrees. I'm also going to just arm the emergency lights there, turn on the passenger sign, which doesn't really matter because, like I said, this is a cargo aircraft. We're also going to put in our squawk code, which according to this random number generator I did, our squawk code is 7... Oh, that's OBS. Wow, I'm actually an idiot. 7670, which probably isn't allowed by FAA laws, but this is the sim. Alright. Over here, we're going to just turn on the weather radar system, and we're going to do a GPWS test.
Glide slow. Pull up. Wind shear. Wind shear. Wind shear. Terrain. Enough. Airspeed low. Sink rate. Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Don't sink. Don't sink. Too low. Terrain. Too low. Gear. Too low. Flaps. Too low. Terrain. Glide slow. Bank angle. Bank angle. 100. 50. 30. 20. 10. 500.
Alright. Okay, so now we're going to do a couple of things. First off, we're going to open up our OFP, and now you guys can see it. Because it used to be the only aircraft that could actually view was the FlyJSim A22X, but I've since been downloading the PDF. I've been turning my OFP into a PDF and then downloading that into my App charts folder. So now when I open it up, not only do I got a 727-200 performance in PPR PDF here, I have my OFP. This is from earlier because it wouldn't let me overwrite it, so we're gonna go. You can see our flight plan, FedEx 8640. This is not a real flight number. Can't find any. KPDX to KOAK. It's literally our entire PDX. Not gonna work. We are gonna actually use this for a couple of things before we set the FMS. So we're gonna open up the weight and balance menu here. We're gonna set our block fuel, which is 23,484, so about 23.5 tons. I'm gonna try and go 2,000 pounds over that. I mean, if you look, you see our taxi fuel is like 500 pounds. That's definitely a lot more. We definitely use a lot more than that. I believe we might use 500 pounds from the engine startup, to be honest. Takeoff fuel is, I believe this is what we should be at for takeoff, which is a 22,984. Our block fuel, 24. Our minimum takeoff fuel is our takeoff fuel, 22,984. Our trip fuel to Oakland is 12,601. We have a 15-minute contingency for 2,337 pounds. Our alternate is 4,143, but then our final reserves is 3,903, and then I believe just like a small contingency for us there. About 500 for the taxi. However, I get low on fuel, more than I like when flying this plane, even with 2,000 extra, so I'm gonna continue doing that. Oh, total fuel, I need to bring it down actually, to about 20, for the entire fact that this is a video, and I don't want to risk it, I'm gonna bump it up. And then we're going to click over 2 pages so we can take a look at our cargo. So we're going to have 35.7 tons of cargo on board the aircraft. I can't get an exact number, so I'll just try my best to get as close to it as I can. And that's going to be 35.8. There we go. We're then going to open up our V card here. Takeoff, we're going to be taking off at 20 degrees of flaps. Our V1 is 123, VR 123, V2 135, and our flaps up speed is 200 knots. So we're just going to set the bugs real quick. We're going to set the speed hold here to 250. Now I say speed hold, this plane does not have an auto throttle. In fact, it's autopilot, very basic. Matter of fact, this FMS is actually kind of not realistic to a real 727. Now, FedEx actually operated 727s up until I think 2013, I think. But they did have FMSs. In fact, most modern older planes like this, like the 727, and some companies that still operate like the 747-200, they have FMSs. However, these are completely jerry-rigged. These planes were initially built with an INS system, an inertial navigation system, where you put in the latitude and longitude of a waypoint, and yeah. So this isn't really. This wasn't in a real 727-200 back then when these things came out. We will be looking at an INS sometime in the future. Really spoiling that next aircraft. But yeah. We're gonna be using the FMS. You can use an INS for this, except it's a $15 extension. It's another add-on made by an entirely different group, but it was built built originally for the 727 as an additional add-on. I don't really know why they didn't instead of just including it, but it is used by a lot of different planes, a lot of different add-ons. So I would say it's worth it. I just don't want to buy it. Anyways, I'm gonna put that away. So this maintenance system, the reason why I did a indicator light test is because with the maintenance system on, as you can see, everything has an hours. Everything has hours. Our airframe is 20.16 hours. Our engines are definitely used, as you can see. The airframe is like how many hours you put into the aircraft. So I've put about 20 hours into this aircraft, into this airframe specifically. As you can see, the engines have definitely taken a bit more of a beating. And our APU hasn't really gotten that much. So with the maintenance system on, what you do with the aircraft actually affects it. If you put out the flaps when you're too fast, they can get stuck. You can damage the flaps. I think you can even rip off the flaps. If you push the engines up, if you suck too much power out of the engines, like if I crank my throttle all the way up to max, I could damage the engine. The APU can get damaged if you try to take too much out of the generator. Indicator lights can fail. Matter of fact, actually, the engines can actually catch on fire and explode. Not good, not good, not good at all. I don't really know how extensive this is. I know the anti-skid can get damaged. This thing has an anti-skid. I mean, not an anti-skid, a tail skid. So it pretty much this is a thing on the back meant to protect the plane in case of a tail strike. That can get damaged if a tail strike. I don't know if any hydraulic lines or anything can get damaged, but you know, with the main system on, this plane can actually break. Meaning we could have an emergency while flying this. I don't know. I hope not. I haven't had one yet. My first flight in this, it did have an interesting incident flying over Alaska where the plane kind of fought itself. The yoke was going left, but the plane was banking right, and then it just shot, and yeah, I slammed into a mountain because the plane just went into an uncontrolled dive. It's like my tail just went out from under me. I didn't really know what to do, because I'd never had an issue like that before, but that was fun. Crashed the plane into a mountain, and yeah. Anyways, let's set this FMS. So we're gonna look at the flight plan. KPDX Oakland as FedEx 8640. If you don't have INS, if you don't have the INS, you can use the default FMS from Laminar Research, which is like default in all default X-1011 planes. It's very basic, and I don't like it at all, but it's what I deal with. Or you can just have no navigation system and fly purely on VORs. Which, yeah, I guess you could do that. I personally would not like to do that without a GPS to at least give me some, you know, at least some little, you know, where I am. Now, this doesn't really help either because there's no, like, navigation display or anything. But at least you know, I know where an airport is. I can easily find it. I don't have to worry about being out of range for a VOR. We're going to go to departure. We're going to go to the second page here. We're going to be taking off runway 10 right, and then from there we are going to be going direct to Echo Uniform Golf. Go page. Direct to Spammy. And then we're going to go to the arrivals. The Windsor 2 for runway 28 left. Now, could this plane do an RNAV? Possibly. Do I believe that it actually can? No. So I'm going to go for the parallel runway, and on the Bubba. If I go to cruise and I set in my flight level, which I think I saw was 310, it should let my progress page work, and it'll give me a bunch of unables or not. Just gotta go in here and get rid of any discons and vectors. Nobody likes vectors. There are some duplicates, but that's after. If I go to progress, 544, that's a bit longer than what I was expecting out of my flight plan. It's a bit longer than what FlightSim December told me. Not FlightSim. But I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, probably fine. That's that FMS file that I filled out. So we're gonna set, let's see, we're taking off runway 10 right, so we'll set you to, let's see, heading, and then I'll set you to GPS. So, the first officer's thing right here, this thing isn't at all affected by the GPS or the FMS, probably because there's only one FMS system in the plane. It is completely independent. This is purely what you have set in the nav. I don't really know why. Also, something I noticed, so typically the pilot flies on the left, or the captain flies on the left, first officer on the right. But for some reason, You know, which would make sense because this has, at least in this aircraft, because if you look, this has a lot more stuff on it. It's got a bunch of backup instruments next to it. It's got, you know, all of this stuff. It's got some speeds over there. This don't. It's got the total air temperature, which is very crucial in putting in your EPR and all that. It's got your yaw damper gauges. This I don't. But interestingly enough, DME-1 is usually associated with the captain, DME-2 is the first officer, but if you look at this, it's completely opposite. DME-1 is on the right side of the aircraft, and DME-2 is on the left side of the aircraft. This gets even more weirder, considering if you put in a frequency on here, this is nav1, meaning if you set the frequency in this box, the DME would be for over here. And if you wanted to get the captain's DME displaying, the first officer would have to put the code in to his nav box, which I don't understand. I don't know. But yeah. How long have I been rambling for? About 25 minutes into this. I'm so sorry. Google, you can get out. Okay. Got that. Before we push back, we're going to open up my airport tab here. We're going to open up KPDX. We're going to refresh it real quick. And we're going to set our altimeter, which is 3050. Also just going to look at the MEDAR data anyways, because I've learned how to read this at least a little bit, so you can see the winds are completely calm. Visibility is 8 miles. There are few clouds at 300 feet. Temperatures are 3, the dew point is 1, and the altimeter is 3050. And did I mess with something over here? But don't look at it. You know what? I don't know. It don't matter. But I'm flying on this side. Just in case I mess with the V-bugs, speed bugs. There we go. It's hovering over this Kings, and then I'm going to get Oakland up, because I need that. So 5 feet. We come over here to this panel. We actually have to set a couple things. So our cruising altitude is 31,000 feet, so we have to set our flight altitude 31,000 feet. Then we have to set our landing altitude to the airport we're landing at. I'm going to set that at 10 miles. I mean, 10 miles. Jesus, we're 10 miles in the sky. We ain't an airliner. We U2 spy plane. 10 feet, I mean. And then we're going to look at this little thing here. We're going to line up 31,000 with right here between 30 and the 32. 4.1, and we're going to set that in this dial, our cabin out. We're going to make sure that's in ground. And I think at this point we are ready to taxi. I mean, ready for the engine start. Jesus, I can't speak. So we're going to be utilizing better pushback, and a cool thing about this plane is if you look over here to the overhead panel to where all this is, ground through call. If you have better pushback installed and you hold down this,
ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
yay. So give me a quick second. I need to find the runway that we're going to be taking off from. I think it's down here. Yep. Okay. So I want to be facing out opposite of where I am. That's good.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
There we go. So with that, we're also going to turn on the beacon light. We are ready for our thing. Now, I flew up here earlier from Oakland to Portland. I did this flight earlier, and it was pretty good. We were in the clouds, definitely on approach. Had the anti-ice on for the wings. I also learned a couple days ago that X-Plane 11 actually has anti-ice. I mean, not anti-ice. Yeah, it does. It has it simulates ice. It's just not visible. But, like, icing is definitely prevalent and a threat. It's just a lot harder to tell than a Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
You know how many times I've been flying that King Air up in colder areas, and I'll look out my window, and my wing and my engine is just covered in ice. It's like, okay, that's bad. There's ice on my leading edges of my wing, so I'll hit the de-icer, and like it doesn't do anything. around.
So connected and bypassed and inserted. Release parking brake.
Parking brake release.
Starting pushback. And you may start engine.
Alright, so there's the engine start clearance. We're going to open up the guards there for the engine start switches. We're going to come over here to the flight engineer station. We're going to turn on the forward boost pumps for all 3 tanks. Well, 2 switches for 2. But, yeah, and make sure those lights are out. Gonna come up here. Gonna turn off the packs. Turn off the galley power. I don't know if that's what you need to do on the 727, but I don't know. We're gonna make sure that our PSI is over 30, and it is. It's edging towards 40. And with that, we're going to come over here. We're gonna put the engine 3 start switch to ground. And then we are going, oh yeah, and make sure that all the bleed airs are open, which they are. And we're gonna take a look at our N2 and just make sure that it's rising. 20% N2, fuel control on. Engine light up. And if you actually look over here, oh well, oh wait, sorry, it's up here. The when the starters are engaged, these lights come on to tell you that the start valve is engaged. Then once our N2 is in the green band, we'll start the engine 2, in the engine 2 startup sequence. There we go. And engine 2 start to ground. You can see, start valve open. %, N2, fuel on. By the way, I don't have a checklist for this. This is complete muscle memory from what I've read about what to do in the 727. I don't have a checklist. Start valve is disengaged. I hit a click. I wrote down a checklist for the 727 based on what I did, which, you know, you think, okay, well, you know, I typically don't forget stuff. And when I'm, you know, I should be able to write down a good checklist for it. Nope. I failed miserably. It is the worst checklist I've ever written. I missed so much stuff. It sucked. I redeemed myself. I wrote down a checklist for the DC-10.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Parking brake set. 20% N2. Fuel on.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
I wrote down some checklists for the Just Flight DC-10, and those are actually good. I put a lot of time into it. I actually tried my best. And what I did for both of them was I loaded into the aircraft, and I kind of went over what I typically do when I'm flying it, and I just kind of wrote down from that. And of course, adding in things that made sense, or sometimes I usually forgot. 727 though, it was horrible. It was horrible. And there we go. All the engines are up and running. We're gonna close the guards and start switches. We're gonna come over here. We're going to tie in the generators. We're gonna take a look at all the generators. Set it to Gen 2. Set the central power to generator 2. Turn on the galley power. We're going to close the engine 2 bleed, and then we're going to turn on the left pack, and we're going to make sure that this temperature goes up and then drops back down.
Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thank you. Have a good time, tug operator. And as that temperature goes down, we are going to turn on the right pack. If we turned on both packs simultaneously, the ducts, whatever, you would get a duct over here. And also, we close the engine 2 bleeds, because if you have both bleeds open at the same time, like if we are supplying the left pack with both the engine 1 and engine 2, it would overheat. We'd get a duct overheat. You might be thinking, okay, well, why don't you just, you know, run them off of engine 2? Which you can. However, running 2 pack systems off of the same engine is going to reduce your power on the engine by a lot than if you fed both packs by a single engine, like, you know, left pack from engine 1 and right pack from engine 3. And with that up, we are going to shut off the APU. Make sure our electric system is good. We're also going to turn on the aft boost pumps. Make sure the low pressure lights extinguish. We're going to make sure the engine 2 crossfeed is open. This pressurizes a manifold. I don't really know what it does, but it pressurizes a manifold. This should be open at all times during flight. And just make sure that engines 1 and 3, tank 1 and 3 crossfeeds are closed unless you are doing other stuff, which I'll talk about once we're in the air, because it's kind of a convoluted system. Autopack trip is normal. This is, actually, I'll talk about it later because we're going to be coming back to the switch in a bit. We're going to turn on the probe heat, the engines, kind of make sure that there are no yellow lights across the board, which there are not, so we're good. APU is off. We're going to come back here. We're going to turn on the taxi and the runway turn-off lights there. There we go. And open up this. We're going to set the flaps to 20. We're going to set our stabilizer trim, 5.83. Go. It's good enough. You can actually set this if you hover your mouse over like kind of this section between 0 and pretty much the bottom of that. It'll automatically trim it to takeoff. As you can see, I was only 1 notch off. It's pretty close. Legit. Starts our set. We're going to set our auto brake to ejected takeoff. And now we are definitely good for takeoff. Or taxi, I should say. Taxi. And for that, I'm also just going to close out of that so I don't get confused. I have ChartFox. If you have a VATSIM account, you can access ChartFox. It goes to official government websites and gets their charts and puts them into this. It's pretty much free Navigraph, and the only issue is that some airports don't have all the charts, or they're out of date, or if they don't have if they're not listed on an official government website, they just aren't found. So for like U.S. charts, it takes them directly from the FAA's official website because they have them listed there. I saw a dude saying that good luck finding a correct sitter star for any modern airport, and I literally just went to random airports all across the U.S. and loaded up multiple SIDs and stars from them because it takes if they're on a government website, it doesn't matter if it's the U.S., if it's Canada, Mexico, UK, Germany, France, Poland, Russia, Italy, doesn't matter. If they are on an official government website and ChartFox has that website listed for charts, like to take them, boom, gets them. Like this chart is like I can find this exact chart on the FAA.gov's website, so they are pretty accurate. The only thing is that since it takes them off of the website, they can, like there are some airports that just don't have them. If they're not listed on an official website, they just can't get them. Navigraph, I believe they kind of comb through and manually grab. Like I think they do a similar system, except they also manually grab charts if they're not available. But I'm not entirely sure. So anyways, I'm here on the southern ramp. I'm also going to rotate this so I can see better if I have to strain myself. I'm on taxiway Echo 5. Echo 5. Okay, well I'm facing Echo 5. So I'm going to take a right onto Echo, and then a left onto Charlie, crossing runway 21. I'm going to just keep onto Charlie all the way to 1 to the right. And I'm also going to do a flight control test real quick. Flight controls are free and correct, and if you hear a whirring sound when I'm putting in rudder, that is my steering wheel. I have a steering wheel for rudder. Do not question me, I don't have rudder pedals. For Microsoft Flight Simulator, I use my Logitech Momo racing wheel pedals, but they just don't work in X-Plane because they don't have a separate rudder axis. It's only one. And while we're taxiing, since I'm going to be utilizing the thrust, I guess I should go ahead and say, the 727 throttle systems, they are very, you have to be on them. Because these throttle settings, there's no FedEx system. I can't remember the acronym for FedEx, but it's essentially an engine management system. So with this, you can very easily redline the engines. You can cause some serious damage to the engines. They don't limit themselves. That's up to you. You have to limit the engines. If I wanted to, I could push the engine into the red. On like a 737, you can't really do that. It limits the thrust output. On this, it don't. Well, I guess it limits the N1 speed. On this, it don't. Because EPR is what is your actual thrust. N1 is just the rotation of the low compressor stage in a percentage. N2 is actually the high compression stage. So like it's deeper. It's the deeper part of the engine, and one is kind of like the outward. It's like that intake you see, the fans. The fans that you can see, while in 2 is kind of like the inner fan, the inner compressors and all that. But there's no FedEx system, meaning I actually have to take care of. If I can damage the engine if I redline it, and I can redline it very easily. There's no FedEx. Also, if you are in like a 737, you push the thrust levers to max power very quickly, the engine wouldn't do that. It would take it very slowly, edging the engines upwards towards maximum thrust output because, of course, FedEx. In the 727, they don't do that. So if you push the engines quickly, it'll try and do that, and but the engine can't. It's like if you're in a car and you have the clutch in, you're stopped, and then you just take the clutch out and hit the gas, but you take the clutch. I'm not even gonna explain it. If you take the clutch out and then hit the gas, if you take out the clutch just all at once, no more clutch, you can stall the engine. And you can do the exact same thing here. If you just thrusted the plane forward, you'd stall. You'd get a compressor stall. You'd get a compressor stall, and that's not good. That is not good. So you have to actually be slow with the throttle, with advancements of the throttle, both increasing power and decreasing power. Either way, if you make too rapid movements, if you move the throttle too much, too quickly, you can get a compressor stall either way, whether it be increasing or decreasing thrust. You'll get a compressor stall. You have to be very slow in applying power and taking out power, which definitely makes landing a bit interesting because in modern airliners, what you can kind of do is you can just, once you get to the point to retard the throttles, you can just yank them back, and the plane will do it for you. But in this, you actually have to be slow with bringing back the power. Otherwise, like I said, compressor stall. Also, like I also said, since there is no auto throttle system, I'm going to be managing everything, including setting the takeoff power. In planes like the CRJ700, which also doesn't have an auto throttle, I didn't really have to set the takeoff power manually. I kind of did it like every other aircraft. See, it has its own things. It has like the CRJ700, for example. You have takeoff power, you have takeoff go around mode or toga, you have climb power, and you have maximum power. So I just set it to a D10. As you can see on this plane, there's no such thing. I actually have to set the throttle for takeoff, climb, cruise, descent, landing, all based on one thing: engine pressure ratio. That. And with doing that, I'm also going to be doing, real quick, I'm going to be pulling up our 727 performance charts. This is specifically for the 727-200 and 200A, which is the ADV. This is a 200F, but still. So, oh my god. Maximum takeoff EPR. So we're going to be looking at this. So, what's our altitude? We are pretty much at sea level. And we have to get our OAT, our outside air temp. And we can get that by just taking a look at our data, which is 3 degrees Celsius. As you can see, this is in Fahrenheit. Everything else is going to be in Celsius, though. So all I have to do is take my current temperature, AC, F, Google. That's about 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit, so about right here. I'm going to go with the higher of the two, because, oh, well, I guess it doesn't matter, because they're both 2. So I know the V-cart's set for us this. However, I'm going off of what the actual performance chart says, because I trust the performance more. Not to mention, I have never seen either of these waver from 2.15 EPR and 97.5 and 1. I haven't seen them do it. They've never wavered. But these actually do impact. Like, these actually do change. Like, your EPR is based kind of on, like, your temperature. If you're in 1, isn't really. But if you're in too hot of a temperature and you set a high EPR, your exhaust can, well, cook up. And that's not good. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Again, V1 is 123, VR 123, V2 135, climb top speed is 200 knots. flaps are 20 degrees, stabilizer trim is set, landing lights on, taxi lights off, strobe lights on, TCAS, DARA, window heat is on, probe heat is on, all this is off. We can keep the packs on. We're going to close the ground interconnect valve, and we're also going to set Q to flight mode, the pressurization flight mode. All this is good. Like, weather radar is on. And for our climb, we're going to be climbing. Our initial climb thrust is going to be 90% N1. That's actually rated in the chart. If I go to the next page, you can see here, climb EPR. No N1 RPM may be used for initial climb power setting if desired. Use 92% when total air temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius and 90% when total air temperature is above 0 degrees. So if I take a look at my total air temperature, you can see it is just above 0 degrees. So I'm going to be using 1. I guess if that drops, I'll pump it up to 92%, and then I will resort to this chart, which is in Celsius, going off of total air temperature, and I'll be using this to base my climb EPR all the way up to cruise. So I'm going to keep it here for now. Altimeters are set, weather radar is set, you are set, pressurization panel is set. I'm good for takeoff. Let's start parking brake and let's do our takeoff. I really hope the weather conditions in Oakland, I hope the winds are calm, because if they are not, it's gonna make landing awkward, because like I said, I am using a steering wheel for rudder. And it's very difficult, and I mean very difficult, because as a human, I only have 2 arms, as I'm sure 100% of you want. Well, as I'm sure the majority of you watching are aware that humans have 2 arms. Majority. It is very difficult for me to have one hand on thrust, on the throttle levers, one hand on the yoke, and another hand on the rudder. It's very difficult. Very difficult. So, the winds are calm, and now I'm going to I'm going to keep the brakes in, and I'm going to advance the throttles to about 50% in 1. Just making sure that they all power up, which they do. I'm going to release the brakes, and then advance the throttles to take off. Now you could fly this plane using N1, however it was much more common to fly. Oh, I just realized I overshot. I set it to what it used to be, not what it is. There we go. Airspeed's alive, 80 knots. Push the yoke down a little. Positive rate. Coming up. Going to pitch to maintain VT plus 10, which is our second speed bug there. We're going to keep her there until 1,000 feet above ground level. Runway turn lights, turn off the local lights, which I should have done before the takeoff, but I didn't. I'm also going to say the flight directors. I'm a mess. I'm going to keep on flying the heading that I'm on till 1,000 feet. And at 1,000 feet, push the nose of the plane down a little. Then start getting some speed. Gear lever off. Set YouTube nav loc. GPS mode. Turn. Flaps to 15. Not enough speed bugs. No, keep that climb positive. Bump my power here. Flaps to Jesus. Flaps to 2. I just barely nicked my flaps up thing, and oh my god, I thought I broke. And now that we're above 200 knots, put up my flaps. Also pitch the aircraft down a little. Pitch it way down. Trim it down even. Oh my god, how much trim am I at? What's my trim? Okay. Set our auto brake to disarm. And now we're gonna come here, autopilot engage, gonna set view to aux nav, alt select, and we're gonna set view to indicator load. There we go. Now, so our total air temperature is, I'll go ahead and use the 0, so we are currently at 1.98 EPR, which we are pretty much at. Well, for most of our engines, at least. Good enough. Alright, and then we're going to come over here to the flight engineer panel. Low pressure warning lights. Those are going to be common all the way up to cruise. Because, of course, some fuel pumps aren't getting any fuel to feed. So that's going to be normal. At cruise, these should calm down. If they don't, that's an issue. We're going to turn off the auto pack trip. And this is kind of like the auto feather on the DC-6. So if we apply thrust and then it detects an issue with the engines, anything that reduces the power, the auto pack trip will actually trip off the packs because the packs suck up air from the engine and thus reduces the thrust output, which is why on shorter takeoffs you'll actually see that power to turn off the packs because it allows more oomph to be taken from the engines. Once in cruise though, once up in the air and after takeoff and all that, once you're in your climb, you turn off the auto pack trip to cut out, because if this is on and you come into landing, once you pull the power back, just like in the DC-6, if the auto feather is on and you pull back the throttle, it will detect engine failure and it will feather that prop, or in this case, it'll trip off the packs. And I'm gonna look at the. I'll talk more about the cross speeds once we're at cruise. Passing 10,000 feet, the landing lights can go off, and the speed bug can be increased to 300 knots. Alright. So now to talk about the autopilot. So, like I said, there's no auto thrust, but here. So the nav selector, there's a bunch of things. So this is a mix of a gyro pilot and an autopilot. So there are multiple things here. You have the turn knob, which is this thing, nav loc, which is kind of like your localizer button on your Airbus and your Boeing, and like the 737 and all that. It'll intercept the localizer frequency, useful for VOR navigation. And then auxiliary nav, which is your FMS or your INS. And then you have auto GS, which would be for your ILS. And then you have manual GS, which from experience, whenever I put this thing into manual GS, it just kicks off the nav selector. I don't really know why, but it did. The pitch selector, you have a vertical speed, which we can use for this. Indicated airspeed hold, which is whatever you have set on the speed bug. And then you have Mach hold. So when you set it to Mach hold, what it will do is it will take whatever Mach you're at and it'll kind of like save that. Wait, no, sorry. I'm thinking of a different aircraft. The speed bug just transitions to a Mach unit, and then yeah. So like if I switch to Mach hold, it would climb at the Mach I'm currently at, and if I bumped it up to 0.7 Mach, it would climb at 0.7 Mach. And then you have pitch hold, which is this, I believe. At least I believe it's that. I don't really know what it is. Or, I don't really know what pitch hold would be, because this is for vertical speed and this is the turn knob. I don't really know anything else. Alt select essentially it's your altitude hold. Whatever you have set here, you hit Alt Select, and that'll pretty much climb at whatever you have set for your pitch selector. It'll climb at that, and if you hit the Alt Select, it'll climb until this point, where then it'll capture this point and hold this altitude. If you ever want to change it, just you just change this, set a pitch, hold, whether it be vertical speed or indicated airspeed, hold, and then arm the Alt Select. Heading Select is pretty self-explanatory. Whatever you have set in the heading bug, hit this, it'll turn to that. And then you have your autopilot engage and disengage switch. The flight directors are completely separate from the autopilot, unlike in a lot of modern aircraft where it's kind of telling it's what the plane should do. This is completely separate. Like, I can turn it to whatever I want, except approach manually. Altitude hold, which it won't let me do for climbing, I'm assuming. And then I can set a pitch command. Oh wait, it could also be because, yeah, right there. There we go, so I can see I can turn it on. It's completely independent from the autopilot. It's just kind of like a guide for me, really. And then I can set a pitch command, of course. We are at 10 degrees Celsius. So now we're going to bump up to 2.14. Jeez. Okay, I misread it. Yeah, 2.08. That's definitely a lot more reasonable. We're just going to increase our EPR to 2.08 EPR. There we go. So when we're setting EPR, we're going to want to pay attention to not really our N1, like, I mean, yeah, we don't want to push into the red, but we mainly want to pay attention to our exhaust. We don't want this to go into the red, because that's bad. And ooh, we're past 18,000. So you see, when we switch our altimeter, this is a comparator. So essentially, this takes information from the captain's side and the first officer side, and compares the two, and if it detects a discrepancy between the two, it'll trigger up. There's quite a few things on it. If I turn on my flashlight, you'll see you have power, heading, pitch, roll, glide slope, localizer, and alt. So when it shows up with localizer, that means this and this are inaccurate, which is why when I set this to GPS, it blew up. Glide slope is very similar to localizer. It's almost the exact same. So if we're on GPS and this thing picks up a glide slope, this will trigger. And altitude is essentially your altimeter. So if mine is set at one thing, and this is set at something else that it deems is out of range, like 29992 to 3050, it'll trigger that. And if you want to tell it, hey, I acknowledge this, stop, just click it. And since I am gonna set you, it would go out anyways. If it's active and you fix the discrepancy, it'll automatically just take off. Okay, there we go. I don't know what else to talk about except that crossfeed. I guess they really is something to talk about. I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started on it. Okay. Fuel system. This thing right here. So this is a very intricate fuel system. You have boost pumps for all three tanks. This plane has 3 fuel tanks, tank 1, tank 2, and tank 3. Under normal operation, each tank feeds its individual engine. So if you look at all these lines, you can see that tank 1 feeds engine 1, tank 2 feeds all of its pumps feed engine 2, and all the pumps from tank 3 feed engine 3. There are cross-feed valves here to, of course, allow other fuel tanks to feed other engines. So Under normal use, all 3 tanks are filled evenly, which deviates from most airliners to where they are usually fill up the wing tanks first, and then, if needed, fill up the center tank. But this plane doesn't do it. You fill each 3 tanks individually, to each keeping them level. So if you have 18,000 pounds of total fuel, you would fill each tank to 6,000 pounds. Quick maths. And you can see tank 2 holds a lot more fuel than tanks 1 and 3. That is because once you hit the limit on tank 1 and 3, you then put any excess fuel into tank 2. And then, once you're in the air, what you would do is you would open up the tank 1 and 3 crossfeed, turn off the fuel pumps for tanks 1 and 3, and then you would feed all 3 engines of tank 2 until they are equal, and then you would turn on the fuel boost pumps for 1 and 3, and then close the crossfeed valves. The tank 2 crossfeed is always on during all operations of flight because it pressurizes a manifold. I don't know what manifold it pressurizes, but it pressurizes a manifold nonetheless, and it's essential to something. I don't really know. I believe on the 200 models that we are in, these fuel pumps, these can stay on. You know, these are always on, but I believe these are higher pressure pumps than those in 1 and 3. So I believe if I read the manual right, when you want to feed tank 2, when you want to feed all 3 engines off of tank 2, in the 200 models, you can just open up the crossfeeds, and then these pumps essentially overpower these pumps. So you don't have to turn off these fuel pumps. I don't really know if that's true. I've also never tested it. I just turn off these pumps because it's good practice, because if it's simulated in the 200 models but not the 100 models, it's just good practice just to turn off the fuel pumps in case I ever fly the 100. But it's a very cool system in my opinion, and of course you can feed the other engines off of the other tanks, but that's the most common setup. But this is the common setup that you'd see. This is the most common scenario. All fuel boost pumps on, tanks 1 and 3 crossfeeds are closed, tank 2 crossfeed open. And again, if you ever want to feed the engines off of the other tanks, if you ever want to feed the engines off of tank 2, open up 1 and 3 crossfeed, turn off the fuel boost pumps for 1 and 3, wait until they're equal, and then boost pumps on, crossfeeds 1 and 3 closed. And now back to oh, there's another thing that I want to talk about. Flaps. Essential to a plane, especially an airliner like this. Very essential. Flaps generate lift for slower speeds, allowing planes to land at faster than what we're currently going. The 727, however, is a very interesting case for these flaps. So in the 737, you can land perfectly fine at 40-degree flaps. Yeah, it's not that bad. In the 737, the max the flaps can go is flaps 30, but that's more than enough for the deployment skies. In the 727, the flaps can be extended to 40 degrees. However, you are not supposed to land at 40-degree flaps. You are supposed to land at a maximum of 30-degree flaps. Why is this, you may ask? Why bother putting in 40-degree flaps if you can't use them? Well, when Boeing designed the 727, they initially thought, hey, 40-degree flaps, we've used it before, and, from what you think, it's fine. It can't be that bad, right? Was that bad? You see, the 727, its engines are powerful, and its flaps, they generate a lot of lift. However, they produce a lot of drag, and I mean a lot. if you can be at idle power, you can start putting out flaps, and you think it's all fine, but once you start putting out like flaps 15, 20, 25, you need to be up on that power. Like that, the power curve is insane. Like you've got to be on it, because if you're not, your airspeed can very quickly sweep out from under you, and you are screwed. And I will continue talking about this in a second. I'm going to go here to the high altitude charts for 0.8 Mach cruise. We're at 31,000 feet, and our gross weight is 147.3 tons. I'm going to round that up to 150 tons. And at 31 degrees, we're going to be at 1.85. Alright, there we go. Anyways, so these flaps, they generate a lot of drag. They generate a lot of lift, but a lot of drag, especially after flaps 15. And when this plane came out, of course, when Boeing tested it, they of course designed the plane. They knew how to fly it. They didn't, and that's sad. So they could land at flaps 40 just fine. They knew that the power arc was very high, and they knew that flaps 40 was definitely a tricky process because you needed to be on the power. If you pulled back, if you didn't have enough power, these flaps would just steal your airspeed and you'd stall. But of course, when this plane was introduced into airlines and started flying commercially, and they were training pilots on it, of course, sometimes people just don't learn well, or they think they know more than what they actually do. And so, a lot of pilots, they're flying, they're putting out the flaps onto approach, they put out flaps 40 degrees, and their airspeed just gets zoom. And, they don't react quick enough, they don't think that they have to apply as much power as they are, but they do. And if they stall. They just don't have enough airspeed. They're not generating enough airspeed. The drag is just insane. And after the first few crashes of not necessarily crashes, there were definitely some crashes due to it, but there was also just a lot of high sink rate upon landing, because of course the lower your airspeed, the less lift you get, the faster you drop. There was a lot of high sink rate landings and crashes, causing a lot of discomfort. So eventually Boeing was like, okay, guys, what are you doing? And they went to they investigated the 727 as to why it had so many issues upon landing. And what they found out is that, this flaps 40 setting was just really so bad in its, it was just so bad in its drag that Boeing said, flaps 40 landing, if you're landing with flaps 40, it can be dangerous because there's a lot of drag. You really have to be on that power. And they essentially said, flaps 40, maybe don't. And what a lot of airlines said, they were like, yeah, okay, you know what, flaps 30. Flaps 30 is fine for landing. And it's in pretty much every single airline's SOPs, pretty much saying, don't go to flaps 40. And I think that's even somewhere on here, maybe on this plane, if I just turn on the dome lights, I can see. I believe it might be somewhere. Yeah, here, flaps limit. Max landing flap setting is 30. It doesn't even say the max speed limit for flaps 40, because you're not supposed to go for that. You can, on this plane, you can go to flaps 40. But as you can see here, you're not supposed to land it. Now you can land, there's nothing, you can land at flaps 40. You could be fine landing at flaps 40. It's just, typically don't, land at flaps 30 instead. That's a lot safer. Less risk associated with it. Some airlines, they went so far as into buying physical blockers, and they would install them on the flaps, on the flap lever here, to physically block the pilots from selecting flaps 40. So if you wanted to go to flaps 40, the airlines actually installed a physical block, pretty much saying, don't you even think about it, bucko. You could not select flaps 40 in some airlines. It actually was a lot of airlines. I don't know if FedEx ever did it. They may have, I'm not too sure. But they typically go against the norm. Like, they still operate DC-10s. That's definitely against the norm. In fact, they have a very large fleet of small turboprop cargo aircraft, FedEx Speeder, it's called. So I fully see FedEx. They also still operate 727s, like I said, up to like 2013. So that's pretty cool. Definitely against the norm. Like, this is an early 60s, late 50s aircraft. It's amazing that they flew it for that long. Kind of sad that I never got the chance to fly it. I would have loved to have been able to fly this, you know. I do plan on, like I've said many times, I plan on flying the MD-11, but what I would have given to have a chance of flying the 727. I can definitely see FedEx not putting in a physical blocker. Yet again, I can also see them definitely putting in a physical blocker. And, yeah. So, for our landing, we're going flaps 30. We're not putting flaps 40. And also, we took off like we're just not going to do it. I mean, if I wanted to, I could, but I'm just not going to do it. And for the most part, I think that's really it with this aircraft. I can't really think of what else to say. I mean, I can give a negative, I can give a little complaint, really. This mock airspeed warning, every time I've tried to do it, it doesn't work. I don't really know why, if it's something on me or if it's the plane itself, but I don't know, I just can't get it to work. I don't really know why. I guess I could just go talking about its systems and kind of, okay. So, I don't know, hydraulic systems. So the hydraulic system A is the engine-driven hydraulics off of 1 and 2. Of course, we got our pressure. Our switches right here. We've got our overheat for the pumps themselves, and you have the hydraulic pressure and the hydraulic quantity, and then a fluid shutoff thing here. And hydraulic system B is your electrically driven pumps. And then you have a standby hydraulic system, which is pretty much in case of either of these being out. So, on the ground, you of course turn on the hydraulic system B, and this ground interconnect valve pretty much ties these two hydraulic systems. So you can feed hydraulic system A off of hydraulic system B's electrical pumps by opening this valve. I believe this is meant to be used only during ground, as it says ground interconnect. I don't really know. I don't know if this standby system would kick in if you lost hydraulic A with the ground interconnect valve closed, or if it would only kick on if you lost both hydraulic A and B. I don't really know. Also, don't really know what the standard operating procedure is for this with ground interconnect valve. I also don't even know what the procedures are for hydraulic failure. Our pressurization panel here, very simple. You set your cruising altitude, you set your landing altitude, and then you take your cruising altitude, you compare it to this chart, you put in your cabin altitude, you keep it in auto, and when you're on the ground, of course, this switch is on ground, and when you go to take off, you put it in the flight position. You have your temperature controls for the cabin. Your bleed air panel, you've got your packs, you've got your engine bleeds, you got your auto pack trip arm, your little indicator saying that the packs are tripped off with the cooling doors. At cruise, these cooling doors are meant to be closed. They are not automatic at all. They are completely manual. They affect of course, the cooling of the packs here. Once you're up at cruise, these are meant to be off. You don't have to be off. You can leave them off for the entire. You can leave them open for the entire flight, but you are supposed to close them. Of course, the cargo heat outflow and the gas per fan speed. I don't really know what the cargo heat outflow is, and I think I know what the gas per fan's on. So if you've ever been on an airliner, on a passenger airliner, you know you got the little vent above you that you control. I believe that's the gas per fan. I think. A little personal thing besides with the light technical. Yeah. Yeah, I've already talked about the auto pack trip, the oxygen system. It's on normal. It's self-explanatory. Galley power, of course, supplies power to the galley. The DC meters, which is this thing, got your essential tracks with battery, track 1, track 2. And then, of course, battery switch, your AC generator drives warning. Gen drive can be reconnected only on ground. I don't really know what they are. I don't know what they do. And of course, you have your actual generation systems here. Talk about the fuel panel, the fuel heat panel. I didn't really talk about, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, jet fuel, it can freeze. Only its freezing point is about minus 40 degrees Celsius. Typically, you won't see this drop into anywhere near there, unless you're flying like over the Arctic with the polar regions up north in Canada and Russia and all that, and down south. I guess like way down south. If it drops, if it starts getting too cold, turn on the fuel. Got your APU panel, and this is your fuel transfer valve. This is, I believe, this includes both transferring fuel from each tank, and I believe it also may include fuel dumping. Sure. Overhead panel, you know, you've got your window heat and you've got your probe heat. You have your passenger signs, CPR, install one, yeah, it's most of the stuff we've seen before, the auto brakes and all that, fuel controls and all that. Now, I just got to put something real quick. I've got to line up my weight and balance menu. What am I at? 145.7. Okay, so 145, 131,000. Go back to power here to 1.83. I do believe I need to pull back the power anyways because of my speed. I'm a little high. However, I'm not going to really care about being too fast. You know, faster I go, the better. As long as I don't hit the barber pole. But that's good enough for me. I'm loud. Set my heading bug in case autopilot freaks out. 340 miles to go. And it's okay. Airports. We're on Oakland now. And I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna get the approach code for 428, right? 1099. Nope. And the course is at 278. Now I'm setting this based on the chart. However, if I open up view and take a look at what it's actually explained, you can see my course and the frequency is right, but my course is not. Course is 279. Always refer to this. However, I can also just see everything else, like missed approach. We're having a little bit of a missed approach, runway landing distance, which is which for this runway for 28 right is 5,458 feet, while 28 left is about 800 feet longer. It's 215 feet. See everything. This is what I look at whenever I'm going through the chart. So if you could see our minimums. So this is your barometric, your altimeter. This is essentially your minimums for your altimeter. This is your radio altimeter. So our minimums are 200 feet AGL. So I'm going to set my radio altimeter for both pilots right around 200 feet. There we go. I mean, that's really it. There's really not much else I can talk about with this aircraft. It's a very basic and very complex aircraft at the same time. There's just not much to talk about. From my maps. I mean, I learned something about this thing. I open up my notes, I have like a little scratch pad. Hi. You can also open up a keyboard version of it. This is actually kind of useful, especially when you're dealing with an INS system. It's also useful like if you have a step climb. You could write out like a taxi information here, like, you know, go Alpha, Golf, hold short, 3, that doesn't exist, but I'll roll with the 3-8 left. You know, tag, 3-8 left. Could do that. Earlier I was flying, I had to climb to 32,000 feet at a waypoint of Sierra Alpha Charlie, so I wrote down on this Sierra Alpha Charlie climb 320. So that way I didn't have to reference to my OFP, and if I forgot I can just easily come here, boom. But it's very useful for writing down an INS. So like if you have a step climb or anything at a waypoint, because in an INS, of course, like I said, you write it down in latitude and longitude. It's not named, it's in numbers. Of course. So if the waypoint is like the 5th one in the INS system, I would write that down in this instead of having to count to my flight plan and sim brief. I would just write down like, you know, waypoint 5 climb 380 or whatever, something like that. And then like if I had a waypoint named like, you know, because the INS system, it can hold 8 waypoints technically with an original position being 0. Well, I get no 9. It can hold 9. Sorry. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you have more than that, once you're in the air and you're going through your waypoints, you'd actually have to set, like, if you have a waypoint after 9, you'd set waypoint 1 to the new waypoint. So I could be like, instead of counting through SimBrief, what I could just write down is like, you know, waypoint 1 reset, and then write down the name of said waypoint, like Gambles. That is essentially just a very quick way of, it's like a quick reference handbook. So if I'm like, okay, what do I reset my thing to? Instead of counting through the waypoints in SimBrief, I can just refer to this. So waypoint 1 reset Gambles. So it tells me, you know, that I'm resetting waypoint 1 to what I am resetting waypoint 1 to, and it tells me the name of the waypoint. So then I can just go to my OFP, find Gambles, and put its coordinates into the INS. Very useful, actually. In certain situations, writing down taxi information, depending on how fast your controller is going, I'd say it's useful. Like some pilots use an actual scratch pad. However, of course, writing with the fingers is a lot easier than using the mouse. FlyJSim had an update. I can't remember the name of the new software, but it's essentially it's a lot better for visuals. It increases like the amount of frames. It increases the FPS, I think, being transmitted, kind of. So when you're looking at other aircraft, you can like when you brake in an aircraft, especially in a light aircraft, of course the nose will go down a bit before coming back up. They claimed that you can actually see that now. So when an aircraft brakes, you can see its nose dip down, come back up. I don't know if that's true. I don't fly on FlyJSim personally. I am planning on doing that. I don't know when I'll start doing it, but I do definitely want to start flying on FlyJSim. I do need to get a little bit of practice in flying like SIDS and stars and all that. Um, yeah, I do need to practice on it, and I'll definitely do that in an aircraft that I know and that I know can handle it, such as I take like the level up 737s and try it, um, just to get a little bit of practice flying sits and stars, because that's essential to flying on VATSIM. You need to know how to do that. I know callouts. I also just need to build up little bit of confidence. I definitely need to take a flight out in like a small Cessna. I actually wanted to do that sometime last week. I just never did it. Um, Not because I was too scared to fly on VATSIM. It is just a simple thing. I didn't feel like flying a Cessna. Like I've been really loving flying the 727 and other aircraft. I put in everything. I got my I got my honeycomb Bravo set up with the levers and all that. My yoke was ready. Microsoft Flight Sim was loaded up. All I had to do was load up VATSIM, like load up vPilot, sign in, spawn into an airport with the Cessna, and boom, I could have flown. And then right when I clicked world map, I just got hit with a wave of boredom, and I was like, I don't really want to fly. And I closed out of Microsoft Flight Sim and I loaded up another game, and yeah, I just didn't feel like flying a smaller plane. Like I've been wanting to, and then every time I go to do it, I'm just like, don't really want it. I don't really know why. I love flying smaller planes. I like flying GA in this game. Not necessarily an X-plane, but definitely Microsoft Flight Simulator. I say not much in X-plane because Microsoft Flight Sim has way better visuals than X-plane, no offense. And also rudder pedals. Rudder is definitely a lot more essential in smaller planes, in my opinion. Because they are a lot more susceptible to wind, mainly. And yeah, I tried taxiing around in the Cessna 172 in X-plane with this wheel, and it's painful, man. At least flying in this, it's manageable, but doing a smaller plane, it's just pain. But yeah. Also need to get better doing coordinated turns, so at like certain altitudes. So I can do a traffic pattern just fine in a plane, at least in the sim. But holding an altitude, which is essential, it's still kind of iffy to me. Like, I know how to trim out an aircraft, but of course it's a lot more difficult to do that in return. And yeah, I just generally need to get some more practice. Just flying, and then with specifics, it's a lot. I don't want to go into VATSIM like way in over my head, thinking like, yeah, I got this, and then when I'm told to do something that most people know and that you should know, and then I just kind of like, oh, well, hey, can I do this instead? I just don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to controllers. I do want to at least have my first flight like that and be at least somewhat as less stress-free as possible, and actually knowing, good thing, like good procedures and all that, knowing how to fly sits and stars. That's definitely a big part of it, because that takes a strain off of both me, stressing out over like, oh, I don't know how to do that. It also takes a load off of the controller being like, oh, I have to, walk this dude through how to fly a plane. It's just better for both parties that I know how to do those types of things. If you're wondering if I'll ever do a VATSIM flight on here, maybe. One thing that is definitely edging me away from doing VATSIM is mainly because mostly when I'm up in the air, I just like to, chill out, take a break, take off my headset, listen to some music, play games on my phone or in the background. If I'm on VATSIM, of course, I have to be on my PC, headset on, and I have to be listening. If they tell me to do something, if they tell me to switch frequencies, I have to be there, be like, okay, yeah, we'll switch frequencies, and switch frequencies. And, I don't really have a lot of time in the day, most days, to fly one-to-one flights. And I always fly one-to-one. I stopped flying with time warps long ago. But, still, with VATSIM, you kind of have to be here, present a lot. Like, I can't just go out for, like, 20, 30 minutes to an hour, do something, come back, and land. I have to be here. Like, they allow you to take small breaks, of course, but, you know, it is definitely better if you stay in it. Like, if you have to keep on leaving from your desk, if you have to go out for a good while, from what I know, they'll be like, hey, could you actually just disconnect? Which is fair. Which is fair. It is definitely fair. Even with the plane on autopilot, you just don't want the plane flying in airspace. Because if they're gone and something happens and they need you to do something, they kind of can't because you're gone. So it's just better for everybody if you disconnected. And, you know, typically I don't have to go for that long. When I don't typically have to go in general, but when I do, it's typically not for that long. And if I know I have to go somewhere soon and it's going to be a while, then I just won't bother flying on that. So, like, if I'm flying, like, there have been times where I've literally left the house with a plane on autopilot and I've come back and I've landed. But on that sim, I can't really do that. 232 miles, apparently. I feel like that's off because remember Simbrief said I was like, there's a 480 mile flight plan, and then the FMS said it was like 530. So I believe I'm actually a bit closer than what's being advertised, which would be the truth. Okay. So let me actually get my, airport elevation is 5, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna alt tab real quick, load up Google Chrome, because this is easier than 1,000 minus 5. Oh, wait, I'm doing this wrong. I have a new way of doing this. 4,200 minus 4,200 times 3 divided by 1,000. That's at 80.4, so I'm not going to bother loading up the whole page. That's at 84, or 80.4, sorry. So 20 miles, 100.4. I'm just adding in the 20. So I used to subtract my current altitude by the airport elevation. What I've started doing is subtracting it by the first waypoint, the first altitude restriction. So for this approach, it's 4,200 to begin the approach. So that's what I'm going to be descending to. So the 80 miles is to just get there, and I'm adding an additional 20 miles as a kind of buffer, just in case, you know, just in case. Now, I do have an issue called the FMS is off. Let's see, it added about 40 miles, so if I subtract 40, I'm 180 miles out currently, meaning in 40 miles, it's 60, at 140 miles, I'd be at 100 miles, so 40 miles. If it's 40 miles additional from 100, that's 100. Oh my god. If I am at 220 miles and it added an additional 40, subtract the 40, and I'm at 180 miles. If that 180 miles means that that is the correct distance, meaning that when I am at 140 miles, I will in actuality be 100 miles, if I remember correctly what the FMS said at the beginning of this video, which I don't even know if it did. I'm just going off of what I think it said, and I don't even know if that is correct. I am super tired. It's 4:29, which isn't good. It's Sunday morning. I have school tomorrow. I'm an actual idiot for doing this when I'm doing it, but oh my god. In other words, FlyJSim released a trailer for the MD-11 on the official explainstore.org website. This doesn't really mean much. There's no ETA available, but from what I saw, it's beautiful. I'll link it in the description below. You can go and check it out. I'll even put it in a pinned comment. It's the plane's coming along very nicely. It showed us the exterior views. It showed us the cargo cabin, the little cargo hold there behind the cockpit. It showed us the cockpit. It showed us the night lighting of the plane, both interior and exterior, and even in fog, seeing all the lights there. It showed us the plane up in the sky doing turns from the cockpit view and the external view. I think it showed a landing. I can't remember. The plane is coming along amazingly, like beautifully. It looks, from what I've seen, from what I saw in the video, they could release it right now, And honestly, I would expect it to be a complete, because it looks complete from the video. Now, in my personal opinion, I believe it might be coming out in the next few months, just because of that. Felix, I can't remember. The 747-200 that came out for X-Plane. Its trailer was released a month before its release, and somebody in the forums speculated that, oh, well, it's going to be coming out in a month. To be fair, it's a very bad way of telling when an aircraft's coming out, but I don't really blame them for coming to that conclusion. Makes sense. It makes a little bit of sense given when the just giving it's believable. I don't really know if it's coming out like a month after that, which I guess would be in like 2 weeks now. But you know, I'm excited. I do think it's coming out in the next few months. And honestly, it might be a bit believable just because of the video itself. Like I said, it was very, very beautiful. It was beautiful externally, interior-wise. You know, textures were great. Now, of course, most of the bug fixing comes into the systems, really. That's when that's what really grinds an aircraft production to a halt. Anybody can hop into a 3D modeler and, you know, model something and make textures for it. But it takes a lot of brain to code an aircraft into a virtual simulator, especially when you're making a study level plane, especially like the MD-11. That's a whole new level of skill that most people just don't have. So they didn't really show any of the systems in use. Like, they didn't really show the FMS or anything, you know, being, you know, worked on. Like, they didn't show anything being inserted into the FMS. They didn't really show any of that. But just from the model of it and the looks of it, I think it's coming along great. I think it'll be out soon. In fact, I don't know. I believe it could come out literally any time from now till, you know, July. I think that's a reasonable time frame just from that video. However, they released the video, but they have not released a single thing on their website. So I also don't know. They didn't release anything on the website, so I don't know. I really do wish they would say something, you know, anything at all regarding the video on their website, because it would be nice. Be really nice if they did. That way we could kind of like have a little, you know, what's happening. The last thing they released about it was back in October, saying it was in beta testing. They have not released any info regarding it since, and it would be greatly appreciated if they did come in and be like, okay guys, this is how everything's coming along, you know, saying if they are close to being out of beta testing, or just how beta testing is going in general, like how, you know, buggy the plane's been, and, you know, how much they've had to work on it, you know, how much they have left to work on it, how, you know, close it is to being done, like not giving a time frame or anything, or release date or anything, but just simply, you know, this is what we've done since beta testing, this is what we have left to do, and what we have left to do after that, and, you know, just how the aircraft is right now. It's been like 4 months since we got a word on it. There's been a trailer release, and I really would like them to, you know, explain the trailer, because it's like, why would they release a trailer with literally no info regarding it? This doesn't make sense. I think a lot of us would appreciate something, just something about the plane on their website. Just something, you know, letting us know what's happening to it, how it's coming along. That way we're not just kind of left in the dark with nothing but speculation and hope. I might be a little biased because I really love the MD-11, and I really want it. I'm really hyped for it. I haven't been following it for that long. I've only been following it since last year. However, there have been some people that have been following it since the beginning, back in 2017. But I'm really excited for it. I cannot wait. I could definitely say I want Rotate to say something about it more than a lot of other people, simply because, you know, I'm very antsy. You know, when I think something might be happening soon that I really want, I get really like, oh yes. I get very just get really antsy. Because it's like I'm really excited for something. And it's just kind of like edging me along, you know. So I would like them to say something to kind of, you know, calm me down a little, like saying something, just something. They gave us a teaser, and then that was it. It's just no other info. It's like someone walking up to you saying, "I love you," and then just walking away. It's like, what? You're just left there, dazzled and confused. Like, what the f? You don't know how to handle it. You're just confused. They gave us a teaser. We're all like, "Oh, hey, yay!" And then they didn't say anything about it, and now we're just like, "Oh, what?" Anyway, so we're about to descend, so I'm going to turn off the galley power. And we can go ahead and begin our descent. So, like I said, beginning to approach at 4,200 feet, so we're going to take our out select. We're going to bring it down to 4,200, switch the mode, 200, turn off the altitude hold. And then we're going to descend at 2,000 feet per minute. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Alt select arm. So that would get us descending at 2,000 feet per minute, and then I'm going to, of course, bring back the power. So bringing back the power for descent is just a case of bringing back the power until your speed stays at where you want it. That's what we're doing. I'm also going to set our speed dial here to 280 knots. And so in the 727, when you begin your descent, the reason why I also got a pack trip off, and I'm not too entirely sure why, because I literally just started descending, so I don't really think it's an issue with the temperature. But just in case, I mean, I'll go ahead and reset the packs here. I'll just open up the cooling doors. I don't really understand why I did it, because there's no way. No way. I mean, maybe it's because I kicked off the galley power. I'm not too sure. I don't know. I'll just do that. I'll open up. Alright. I don't remember what I was saying, to be honest. When you're descending, it's just about bringing back your power. So what was I saying? 'Cause I don't think it was that. I think I finished it. I don't really know. Yeah. Okay, but we're coming into Oakland now. We're descending 2,000 feet for now. Click it one more notch forward. We're gonna bring back our EPR. We're gonna be staying in the positive. We don't want to bring it back to idle. So, I believe when we don't want to bring it back to idle, I can't really remember if that means you don't want to push it past, if you don't want to bring its N1 too low, or if it means you don't want to put this EPR out of this little band. You don't want to go into the blank space. Out of the blank space, baby. Yeah. So I'm just gonna keep it above that, above 1.0 EPR. Try my best to descend at 280 knots, and I'm gonna go ahead and set my speed bugs here. So at a flaps 30 landing, my VREF is gonna be 129. 129 knots. Let's put that. Make sure you are set. You are. Galley power off. Cooling doors are open. Autopilot trip is cut out. Okay, we should be good. We should be good. And taking a look at the ATIS information, the MEDAR data for Oakland, winds are calm. The visibility is 10 miles. Few clouds, 600 feet. 7 degrees Celsius for temps. It's weird that it's colder down in Oakland than it is up in Portland. Jesus. Altimeters are 3027. And I don't really know what the rest of this means. But that's the most important things. The visibility, the wind, the altimeters, the temperature, the clouds. And then of course we have our minimums, and with that, the event of a missed approach, we will be climbing to 1,900, and then on a right turn to 3,000 on a heading to 340. We're going to go to the Sierra Gulf Delta Vortex. and then we're gonna go R165 to Rebus here, Golf Delta for 14 feet, which is there you are. So SGD 1121. So I'm gonna just get that up on here, 1121. That way I can just. Now I haven't done a missed approach yet, mainly because I'm not online. That's also something I want to get better at. Doing holds. Doing like holds and missed approaches. Like I know how to do a go around and I know how to do a missed approach and all that. However, that's listening to what to do. Actually going off of this specifically, you know, going up, doing the hold and all that, I don't know. I would test out in the FlyJSim 832 next because it can do like the Airbus has like a hold system in place, so where it can just automatically do a hold at a certain radius. But that's not simulated in the FlyJSim 820, so can't do that. And as you can see, even though we're idle power, we are not slowing down. Because this plane is, you know, it's small, it's sleek. I have to put out the speed brake. You might hear it click a lot, like this. But, I assure you, it's fine. Just gonna put out some speed brake. Get our speed down a little. Also gonna open up the map and zoom in. So I'm landing on 28 left, I think I am. 28 left? 28 left or 28 right? Which one had the ILS? Which is this chart? 28 right. So we're gonna be coming in on the opposite. Ooh, and the runway is 5,000 feet long. So auto brake is gonna go to me. I mean, since the winds are calm, I could land on runway 30. However, I do need to get better at landing this thing on shorter runways. The only thing I'm worried about is because I don't typically land on runways this short in the 727. Now, it doesn't require a long runway to land on or take off from. I just typically use up a lot of runway on landing. Now, typically my landing configuration is, of course, flaps 30 with the auto brake set on minimum with my spoilers and thrust reversers deployed, and I use up most of the runway. So I don't know, maybe putting it to medium will help. But yeah, I usually would use up like maybe 7,000 feet of a 10,000 foot runway. Again, it just might be because the auto brake minimum is very weak, but I don't know. And then I have planes like the DC-10 from Just Flight, where if I, auto brake minimum, spoilers deployed and the thrust reverser out, it can go from 130 knots to 40 knots in seconds flat. Its deceleration time is, in my opinion, way too strong. Oh my Jesus! I just looked at my speed. I didn't expect my speed brakes to slow me down that much. Holy crap. I got way too sidetracked by everything else in life, and I didn't even pay attention to my speed there. And I just load a few, refresh, altimeters, 3027. Go. Get a little action of that comparator, automatically turning off. I am going to keep me under 250 since I am, getting close to 10,000. I'm going to try not to do what I did, try and be better about that. For some of while I've done something like that. You can see San Francisco. If I look at the map, literally, Oakland's here, San Francisco's here. Like, well, Oakland's here in San Francisco. I mean, like, here's the here's the Oakland Bay Bridge. It stretches, but like the airports are literally like almost right next to each other. They're like maybe 5-10 miles apart from the San Francisco Bay. And you got the Golden Gate right there. So we're here. We're gonna be coming in around the airport and landing on this runway. I might sidestep it over to 28 left simply because it's longer. Let's see. 28 left doesn't have an ILS, so it would be purely a visual approach. I mean, I can do a visual approach. You know what? Get out of here. Can I get an approach plating for 28 left? I could do an RNAV. Is there anything for a visual? Is there any approach plate for a visual? No. That's fine. I'm not going to be doing an RNAV, but I will do this nonetheless. We're going to be beginning the approach at 3,700. And, we are going to be... Why don't you say how far I'm meant to be? Okay, and also the, radio... 332 all set. Gonna set 332 right there. Try my best. So we're gonna be beginning at 3,700. Bump up that throttle a little. And we should be 8.6, 13. We should be 13 miles out. Unfortunately, I don't have a VOR for the runway. Meaning I am going to be going off of 28 lefts, 28 rights, ILS for the DME, but in general, like, they should be very similar. I believe they're touchdown zones. 28 right is just a little bit, you know, it's a little bit back, but you know that's okay because only because that means it's actually a bit better. Oh my god. So there's Oakland right down there. Oh, below 10,000 feet, the landing lights are going to go on. See, we're right next to the airport and we have 78 track miles. I don't trust it. And there's San Francisco over there with a 19 left and 19 right, 28 right, 28 left. So that's 30, their longest runway, and the runway we're going to be landing on is right here, I think. This is 28 right, I think, and this is 28 left. As you can see, you know, comparatively, they are very different. Like, this is a very longer runway. This is like an 11,000 foot runway, and this is like 6,000. And missed approach-wise, in the event of a missed approach, we're going to be climbing to 3,000 on a track of 278 to Opoli, and on a track 348 to Rebez. Okay. And again, 3,700, even though we're coming in from Bubba. So actually, I guess to begin the approach, we should be here at a meaning we should be at 2,800. Because just in general, you know, because this is actually, because, oh wait. Oh, but this is the beginning of it, so this is that, so 3,700. Okay, yeah, so 13 miles to 2,700. And, as I descend, what I'm going to do is I'm actually gonna sync up my heading dials. I'm gonna engage the heading select. I'm gonna switch you to nav mode, so now I should be here. I feel like I should be getting a DME from the airport, you know, all things considered. Where even is the airport? I don't even know. Okay, where's the airport? Where's the airport? Oh, there's the airport. Okay. I feel like I should be getting a DME, but I'm not, which is concerning. 28 right is a 109 decimal 9. 109 decimal 9. Okay. I'm just not getting a DME. Concerning, like I said. Not that long. I'll set the course 279 so I at least know I'm in line with the runway. then see we're about to level off. So I'm gonna retract the speed brake there. Start putting in some power. Actually speed up, so I guess I should bring it out. So no DME, like I said, concerning. I don't know how far away I am from the runway. Meaning I'm just gonna kind of be flying this purely on a visual. I believe there's a mountain there. I think I can slightly make out a mountain, but I can't tell if I'm seeing fingerprints, smudge marks. I don't really know what that is there. But I'm going to back course the runway here, and that's a mountain. That is a mountain. I have confirmed that is a mountain. I don't have a DME, so I'm completely blind. So I'm just going to fly out towards the bay a little, and then I'll backtrack, come back in, and land. I'm just gonna fly out towards the bay to get some distance between me and the airport so I can come in on a long final, and then I'll come around. And I would back course the runway and then come in for a base leg, but as you can quite clearly see, mountain. I mean, you can't really clearly see it. You can just kind of see the lights on it, how they kind of slope up. You can see that you can definitely tell that there's a mountain. And if you look over there at the horizon, it's kind of disappearing behind terrain. Just there's a mountain. I don't want to repeat of my DC-6 flight. I don't want to smack into a mountain. I've done that too many times in flight sims. I had a 747 smack into a mountain, a DC-6 smack into a mountain. My God, that hurt. God. And I had that 727 I was talking about earlier crash into a mountain. Oh, Jesus. That freaking hurt. I have a metal desk. I have a glass desk, but it's got metal on the sides, specifically on the keyboard tray. And I moved my hand down really quick and I nicked the side of my finger on the metal beam. Oh, that hurt. Oh my God. Okay. Now I'm gonna back course the runway. Away from the mountain. Although I think I'm actually far enough out that I could I can just come back around and begin the approach. No DME, but whatever. It's fine. I'm gonna turn on the runway turn-off lights and the logo lights. I really hope I can find a parking spot that is light. That way I can get a thumbnail. That mountain's gonna be in my way, isn't it? I think the answer to that is yes, actually. I think that mountain's in my way. But I think I'm over it. I think I'm over it / I think I'm gonna be able to turn quick enough. Oh, I'm definitely over the mountain. Yep, close to the mountain. We're landing 28 right, 28 left. That's something I should definitely know. Okay. So, I'm gonna set my B speed. Just check 128. So that I can see. I got visual on the runway. And then set U. Gonna bring back throttle. And I honestly think I should go ahead and start my descent, so I'm gonna do something that I don't typically do. Autopilot off. and I'm going to fly this thing fully manually. Now I do this in flight planes in sims all the time, so this shouldn't be that difficult to do. The only difference is this is a way bigger aircraft than anything I've ever done before like this from this long of a final, and I honestly think I'm already too high. Again, I don't really have a DME, so it's really hard to tell. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting out some flaps so I just kind of get some drag going, and I believe I'm below the gear speed, so I'm gonna put out the gear too. One thing about the 727, cannot put out the speed brake at all once you have flaps out. It will yell at you. Start putting up flaps behind me. I'm high on the approach here. I blame it on my lack of a DME. If they had their DME working for 28 right, I would be able to at least have some bit of a judge as to how far away I am. But since they do not, I am completely flying blind with nothing but a visual guide. A visual guide that is very poor. Put down the nose a bit more. Just, I know my speed's going to increase, but my plan is to put the nose down, get possibly even low on the approach, and then pull back and let fly level, let the speed bleed. Oh my.
1,000.
This is an unstabilized approach if ever I've seen one, and I'm gonna be really cutting it close. Left. Alright, landing configuration complete.
5. Sync rate. Sync rate.
I'm gonna use sync rate on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Minimums. 300. Glide slope. Glide slope. Glide slope.
How are you even getting a glide slope alarm? There is no glide slope. I know dang well you ain't taking 28 right.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Thrust reversers deployed. Head spoilers deploy. We are touchdown in the decel. I somehow managed to actually get slow enough into my VREP speed. $80 knots. Holy crap. 60 knots. Frickin' max braking power. Jesus. Oh, there's no runway turnoff. Jesus. Alright, just track the spoiler there. Take a hard right. So see what I mean? Okay. To be fair, that was a very unstabilized and very unorthodox approach, and I did come in really fast up until the last minute. I did a very DC-6 style of landing there. However, I was in my VREP. I was within my speed, my land brake. I was in my landing limits for speed. Like, I was in between this and in between these two. So I was slow enough. I was at my landing speed. My flaps are 30 degrees. My thrust reversers were deployed. My speed brakes were deployed, and my auto brake was at medium. And yet, despite with all of that, I still almost overran the runway. Like, do I have to put auto brake max for 6,000 foot runways? That doesn't feel right. But I don't know, maybe. Maybe. I don't really know how strong the auto brake is in this, and I really don't even know what this thing can land, what runways this thing can land at. So I guess, I don't know. I think I just need to put in more auto brake. I really don't know. Or maybe a more stabilized approach would definitely help, but like, you know, I didn't, yeah. landing lights off, taxi lights on, strobe lights off, flaps. Coming up, flight directors are up. I'm gonna come up here to the flight engineer panel. Good. Good, you're good, you're good. We are going to turn on the APU. 7 seconds, and then APU start. Hold it there until APU crank. Let off. So that's all good. So it's off. Over here. And let's see the overhead panel too good. TCAS is off. Alright. Airport diagram. So I am off of 28 left on taxiway Juliet. Alright, so the FedEx terminal is down here, so we're going to be taking a right onto Juliet, crossing runway 28 right, or 10 left, onto Charlie, keeping onto Charlie, coming down onto Bravo, crossing to the right and to a left, and then just keeping on Bravo. So just rights, essentially. Alright, parking brake released, and I'll turn off the dome light. Put the taxi, there we go. That's also something I need to get better at. Visual approaches. Now, again, to be fair, I should have had a DME, and I didn't have a DME. Somehow, the ILS for 28 right is... Dude, Cat 1... No, an ILS has to have a DME. That's like a major part of it having a DME. Matter of fact, if it has a localizer, which is literally a essential part of an ILS, it has a DME. So, I don't really know. DME wasn't working for 2A right. I couldn't see how far away from the airport I was, so to be honest, I was kind of dark. I was kind of flying in the dark. I had the airport, I had the runway as my guidance. And it is very hard, especially when someone like me, who's tired right now, and needs glasses, and looking at a 2D screen, it is very hard to gauge distance. Depth perception is not good in a sim like this on a 2D screen. It's very hard for me to tell how far away I am from something. Especially when you're talking, you know, not like inches or feet, but miles. Very difficult. I think if I had a working DME, that would have been a way better approach. Really makes me wish I went over and just did a landing on 30 because I could have, because the winds were calm. In fact, I don't even know why SimBrief said, hey, land on 28 left. Their second shortest runway. I don't know why it said that. When 30 is like pretty much double the length when the winds were completely calm. And it had a Cat 3 ILS. I don't know, it just would have made more sense in my opinion. So I'm going to keep on Charlie before making a turn onto Bravo. Yep. So we should be parking in a pretty light spot. So I'm trying to keep that taxiway center line in between my altimeter and my artificial horizon. I have noticed that that is a very good point for keeping it on center. If I come over here to the, you can see it's pretty good, and then over here it's pretty good. And if I went into the external view, you can see I went a little bit to the left. No, I did. Yeah. Let's go back to the cockpit. Come back to the cockpit to get it lined up, and then go into. Oh, why'd you reset? Cut those off. There, you see, I'm pretty center, and I went a bit to the right, and I'm a bit to the right. Well, now I'm going on to Alpha. I don't know where Bravo went. I'm just kind of like bypassing the runway threshold. Okay, well that's... Ooh, shoot. Uh, that's actually a common thing at Atlanta International, at KATL, Atlanta International, Delta Sub, their HQ. It's a very common... They actually have a little points like this at the end of their runways. At least one side of the airport. I don't know if they did it for the other end. But one side of the airport, they have it like this, to where instead of having to cross the runway, it's a little point that goes behind and below the runway. Little man-made divot, which is a lot better actually, because taxiing aircraft don't affect any aircraft on the runway taking off or landing. It also doesn't. You don't have to worry about having to stop. To allow a plane to land or take off. You don't have to stop. You can just boom. It's helps keep the airport moving and alive. It also reduces fuel efficiency because they don't have to do stuff like this. Throttling up and speed as that was supposed to be. Thought the engines were going to be a lot louder than they were, and they were not. Ooh, 737. Speaking of that, I mentioned it earlier. I know I said I would do a flight on it next. On the 600. I haven't planned that yet. Haven't done it yet. I don't know when I'm going to do it. Give me some route suggestions, please. And also give me some route suggestions for a bigger plane such as the Jumbo. I want to do another flight in the 7-4, but I don't really know what to do with it. And I would like a suggestion for a little long flight. Not insanely long, but a bit more than like 2 or 3 hours. Longer than this flight, but not. I'd say the maximum I would go for is the last 747 flight we did from like New York to London. Something as long as that or shorter. 7 hours or less, for my sake. Oh yeah, I also downloaded a ground scenery thing. It replaces default aircraft that you're seeing here with just more aircraft, more realistic aircraft, and more modern companies too. Like, we've got UPS, we've got a better mix of FedEx planes. Just a better mix of planes in general. Some got better models. Parking brake is set. Taxi and runway turn off lights off. How good am I? Pretty solid. Alright. Taxi, dome light on, and APU generator tied to the APU, and set the essential power to the APU. Oh, you were meant to be in ground? Oh, yeah, and you were meant to be in ground, and you come back. Yeah, dang. Alright, well, that's okay. Fuel control. Cut off. And beacon lights off. And then we will turn off the right pack and open up the APU bleed. Making sure that it doesn't go into the red, which it shouldn't. Yep. And then turning off the fuel pumps. Go, gotta turn it off. Alright. This freaking pole is literally in the worst possible spot, because on this part it's too dark, and on this part it's literally perfect. You know what? Free cam. I forget to do that sometimes. That's a nice photo. I'm like so tired. also, while on the ground, I'm gonna just do a couple things. Probe heat can go off. Window heat can also go off now. The emergency exit lights. Disarmed. Passenger signs can go off. Window heat is off. Passenger signs are off. Navigation and logo lights, I'll turn those off. Come over here to the flight engineer panel. Turn off the hydraulic systems. Close the ground and connect valve. Turn off the packs. Cargo heat outflow closed. Gasper fan off. And set GT bus tie. EPU on the APU. And APU off. Battery power off. Don't let me off. There we go. And that is the plane shut down. Just gonna close that like this. I do definitely want to start doing more flights with this thing. I love this thing. It is so far possibly my most favorite aircraft for X-Plane 11. Followed up by another aircraft that will probably be the next one we do if I get a route suggestion that fits it, or if I can even think of a route to do that would fit it, to get the most out of it. And then of course I got to do that 737-600 flight, maybe do a couple more flights in the DC-10, and when Rotate gets their MD-11 out, definitely doing the MD-11. And for now, that's going to be the end to this 2-hour and 16-minute video. It is currently 5:13 a.m. where I am. I am beyond tired. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to real quickly get it uploaded, and then I'm going to crash. Give me some route suggestions below for a 737-600, just 737 in general. Actually, I think I can do that. But it's mainly for the 747. That is definitely the one I want. Nothing too long, nothing more than I'd say 8 hours, 7 hours. That's kind of like my limit so far, because just Jesus, I don't have it in me. Also don't really have the time to do such a long flight. But 7 to 8 hours, I would definitely say is the max. 747, something that you think is cool. Any part of the world, it would be an X-Plane 11 too. So that may sway your opinion. Just a route suggestion for the 747, and I'll do my best to do that. But for now, that'll be it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I need sleep. So see y'all next time.